Welcome to the AI Assisted Organization podcast of Implement AI, hosted by myself, Piers Linney, and my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Alok Shukla. So Dr. Alok Shukla. I always forget that. Sorry about that. Good
Hey,
morning, Alok.
hey, Piers. How are you?
All right, I'm back in the UK. I've got 10 days in Ibiza, so I'm back now. I'm ready to do some work now. 10 days hanging out with the kids is quite enough, to be honest with you. And you're back in Lisbon. Are you still playing chess?
Yes, a bit addicted at the moment.
So let's go quite a lot to go through. It's fascinating stuff. So let's get into it. So the show we're going to go through today, impacts on human resources. You know, should you be looking at your payroll and AI agents, and when do you start augmenting your human resource with AI agents, or potentially in some cases replacing that human resource as well over time. So we're going to talk about that human resource and what we call AI resource. So the sort of AI agent equivalent of human resources. And we'll talk about fine tuning these large language models for large enterprises. That's becoming easier to do these days. We've got the Implement AI events. We're in Manchester, in Dublin, we're organizing a few others, which will update you on as well. And also eventually a text to video. I think most companies, a really powerful tool is going to be, and it's arrived, is text to animation, and of course, AI of the week. So let's get into it. So human resources, this is something that we talk about a lot at Implement AI, and Alok has the analogy which I really like, which is that you've got your sort of human resource, your payroll, all these different roles, and over time you're going to start adding. This is what we develop really, AI agents. So that we call this a micro SaaS or an agent. So imagine someone doing, I don't know, data entry is one that we're developing, and you can now augment the person. So we have this kind of, your business is not going to go from 0 AI to 5 fully autonomous overnight, but also neither are your employees, your human resource, your consultants. So initially they're going to be assisted, they're going to be supported, they're going to be sort of AI assisted. But over time, as the AI becomes more capable, you're going to be able to assist them more, and eventually, in some cases, replace that human resource. So that's something that is coming. And there's a lot of research out. So IBM produced some research saying that 40% of workers are going to have to reskill within the next 3 years due to the development of AI. So this doesn't mean necessarily that people are going to be, put out of work. What it's saying is that they're going to have to reskill. So either what they were doing is no longer necessary, what they were doing can be half done by an AI agent, and they've got to, and I keep saying this, you've got to move up the value pyramid because it's been filled by technology. So we as humans have to add more value. And this was across, it was an international survey across 3,000 C execs in 28 countries. 21,000 workers as well were basically captured by this report. And we're saying that AI is going to absolutely change the nature of the workforce. And also, there was some McKinsey research that's very interesting as well, saying that how many organizations think that their payroll will decrease over time or will increase. Now, in many cases, overall, they're thinking that the payroll will increase because of growth. But within that, they're expecting a huge amount of change from the development of AI and the evolution of AI. And that kind of goes back to the IBM research. So I don't know, Alok, what you think about that. I sent you over the research and reports, but this seems to be moving very, very quickly, a lot faster than people thought.
Yeah, and I think this is the key thing, really. I mean, you were giving me that use case where there was like a kind of multinational organization that produce investor reports in multiple languages. And before they were paying lots of translators to do that. Now they're using AI to keep one version of the file and have it multiple translated in a simple way. I mean, that's like, think about translation as a task, like the cost, the proofing, the phrasing, all that kind of stuff. And as you look into more and more tasks where it comes either like to weekly repeated interviews, let's say medication updates in a GP practice, or financial changes updates and things like this, as AI agents are able to like talk, take an input in text, process that information and move on, or they can take information from documents, from emails, even from web pages, and then update and fill out more information, and even call people on your behalf. More and more work is going to be taken over by AI agents. So it's really going to be about building more and more AI assisted workflows to complement your human workflows. But you've got to then start having some really serious conversations about, like, if, like a task which is taking 3 hours a week, 4 hours a week of labor can now be automated, where does that person go? What do you allow that person to do? But then also, as your revenue per employee kind of grows, as a business, you've got to become more technology focused and kind of grow. So I really think that, like, developing your AI resource, like parallel to your human resource, and looking at like how you can use technology in a meaningful way this year to kind of go with things. Because like I thought multimodal, like the computer systems understanding vision and understanding like the images and be able to analyze and optimize those would come next year, but they're already here now. So like the pace of change is just so rapid that I think you really need to start looking at these solutions right now.
There's quite a few spoilers there for the rest of our podcast today from Malok. So we'll come on to talking about translation as well. But I think the key thing to make about the IBM research is it's very easy to go and talk about reducing the need for headcount and human resource. But actually, one of the key findings in their report was that if you have technology, they call it technology-driven jobs, we call it AI assisted. It means they report a revenue growth premium. So this is your growth in revenue is accelerated by 15%. And those that are focusing on AI, you can't always, but where they can, are seeing a 36% revenue growth premium. So it's not just about cutting your costs, which clearly is great news because you can increase your margins and reduce risk. It's actually about revenue growth. So you're looking at revenue growth accelerating by between 15 and 36%. And it's almost on our kind of level 0 to level 5 sort of AI-ometer. So that's really interesting. So have a think about that. Which brings us neatly into our sort of discussion we wanted to have today about AI agents and AI development and an AI agent deployment. So you've got HR, and we call this AI resources. So again, imagine all your different roles in your business. Imagine that you start switching on AI agents to, take away the mundane. I always say automate the mundane, take away the mundane tasks, speed people up, reduce errors, which again speeds people up and reduces business risk. And over time, some of those roles are obviously going to be replaced. So it's a question of, this is what we do at Implement AI really, is going through the workflows and the roles and seeing where AI can add value, optimize, and reduce costs. So you almost need to have an AIR, an AI resources department, or at least something or somebody whose job it is to think about this and to implement it. And this is where your chief AI officer probably needs to focus on. So there's lots of research on this as well, and you're seeing more and more what they call autonomous AI agents appear. And on last week's pod, we talked about OpenAI, had an acquisition there, and there's quite a few others where they're now recruiting teams of people to develop autonomous AIs. You saw this being called auto GPTs, and you could have, imagine, they're not discrete. So you might have one specialist AI agent that's been designed to do one particular task very, very well. Another one does something else very well. So you might have data entry, you might have research, data entry, data analysis, and they can then talk to each other and work together just as humans do to develop to procure an outcome objective you've got for your business.
No, I completely agree. And I think that the way to think about it is as a team of AI agents, like that literally would become part of your like AI resource within a company. So the way to think about it is like think about like the existing workflows in your business where let's just use a phone call example, where maybe one of your team members is answering the phone or is like, like taking information from a meeting on a phone call and then doing some actions from that information. Well, here, the AI agent could be listening to the call, but transcribing everything, extracting all the key information, and then also like pre-doing the actions that should have happened on the next stages. But then that can then pass it to a data entry agent that can put it into any data system that's required. It can also write a letter for you. So, by API, you could trigger and have a letter sent out for you automatically. There's so many new capabilities that can be unlocked. And then different agents can also then talk to each other. Like, let's just say, for example, you've got like a customer policy based on the details of everything. It could take all the complaint information, it could analyze that against the customer policy, and it could reframe a more empathetic answer or even a solution if it's got a bandwidth of like, I can spend up to £50 to correct this issue for this customer. So you can start to understand you're going to get much more consistent, much more scalable, solutions, but at the same time delivered with that customization. I think like the thing that used to kind of let things down from previous automation would be like the same template you've heard every time. So you'd always see the same text, the same template, and you'd be like, yeah, this is just boilerplate. But with AI, you can actually make it more personalized, and so you can actually deliver those things in a much more experiential way, basically. Which I think then means that like if the human is accepting the AI as the the conversation or the voice or the tone, that just lubricates everything, and it just really lets you just
Yeah, and I think what's important to recognize is that in most cases, going back to my point I always make is automate the mundane, right? Let's face it, this is why I've been on TV and Dragon's Den, right? The only exciting part of a business or for TV is that moment where you put your dreams on the table and somebody says yes or no. The reason business is hard to do on TV because most of it is pretty mundane. It's admin. So a lot of the people that work for you or work alongside you, they're doing things day in, day out that they'd rather not do. So when you're looking at automation, key is to automate those parts of their day so they can focus on the parts of the day where A, they add more value and B, they enjoy because they're more likely to hang around. So we've been working quite closely with a lot of quite a few wealth managers, large and small, and they have these, they recruit people, they bring them into the team, they onboard them, and they spend a lot of their day doing mundane tasks, just data entry, sifting through things that have been sent to them by large institutions to extract the data they need. And it's tedious and it's boring, but there's no other way of doing it. So, for example, there's a great example of something that can be and needs to be automated. And what that means is you're going to have probably a higher, less churn of employees and higher employees at job satisfaction.
No, definitely. And I think like, if you think in your zones of like where the opportunities will be, they'll be like within the operations that you're talking about, like administration. Then you also have your zones where it's going to be like the marketing, content creation, all those different areas, and customer support and sales. So there's so many places you can employ agents to support your team members, but also take over some of those roles as well. And within the next 12 months, we're going to start to see more and more businesses with a significant part of different workflows being done by AI. That's coming, and then their cost structure is going to be radically different to other businesses' cost structure, which will then trigger the ones to have to then make the changes. But the key thing here is you want to be the proactive one rather than the reactive one, because you need to be able to build and iterate on these things.
Yeah, and you're essentially reducing your cash requirement, you're increasing profit, cash flow, and you're reducing business risk. So there's two wins there very, very quickly. Talk about that all day because that's kind of what we do, but let's move on. So a big one that Alok alluded to early in the pod was the translation, right? So there's now ElevenLabs, and that's one of our favorite sort of AIs in terms of the ability to clone your voice. And if you don't want to clone your voice, you have some fantastic voice you can just select that have the real sort of, they sound like humans. And increasing all of these voices, you're even hearing them take in breath just like a human would do. They're
Yeah,
becoming really, really indistinguishable from a human. And they've now released ElevenLabs have released what they call multilingual V2. So this is 30 languages. As Alok was saying, I did a keynote at an event last week. I actually flew back from Ibiza just to do a keynote and then flew back again. Never get on a flight from Glasgow to Ibiza early in the morning because it's just utter chaos. Anyway, so they they were telling me that because they're basically, imagine a fund, billions under management. They have a huge number of what they call limited partners, investors in the fund from all over the world. I think it was over 20, I think it was 26 in my mind. They have to produce investor reports in 26 languages. So when you have finished it and you've produced it and you think, oh, hang on a minute, you need to change something, you imagine what it's costing them to get that translated and then tweaked. And what they were telling me is that they've started using AI to translate their reports. They've taken all of that cost out, and basically what he said, it's just better. It's higher quality and it can be changed a lot faster, and it speeds up their process and their ability to get information out to their limited partners, who are essentially the funds investors. That was fascinating. But you're now seeing what this really means is, Alok, isn't it? Is that Mr. Beast is great at this on YouTube. He produces his YouTube videos in many languages. And last week we were showing on social media how you can translate videos, but now you can translate anything into another language. And if you're a speaker of that language, you read this content, then it's indistinguishable from a human translator, and in many cases even better. And the power of translation with AI is that you could translate, a document from English into German and do it in a way that Snoop Dogg would speak. So not just can you can translate into different tones of voices or different dialects even, can't you?
no, I think that's a key point here, right? Like, I mean, you've got technical translation where you've got like solutions like DeepL or different ones like this, and like similar to what like that fund manager is using. So technical content can easily be translated, and that's a huge area of making the world more understood. But then the second part of it is, like you said, is like translation in terms of tone, in terms of accessibility, in terms of like the feeling and the empathy. That's another type of translation, and that's where like having the different voices, having the different avatars, having different kind of personas can work. Because I've seen examples of video where it's like a female customer service representative, and then they just change it, and then it changes nationality, and it looks exactly the same but in a different nationality. You know, like from like Chinese to Dutch to Scottish to like African American. Like it can just change, and so that's like another level of translation. So I think the whole point here is that we're going to be able to get increasingly tuned to our own tastes and our own goals and our own kind of like mind pattern, different information, and this becomes very powerful because this is like how you know the more of our unconscious beliefs and desires can be matched, the more we're going to connect with different solutions, basically.
I mean, it's hyper personalization, which we often talk about in terms of marketing, but this is just about just being able to connect with the human at their level in their language. It's actually really important. So you mentioned fine tuning there, which is a nice segue into the next thing we want to talk about, which is fine tuning models. So large language models, you can get them out of the box, and they are tuned. But it's quite generic tuning. You can then fine tune them for specific purposes for your business or your customers or whatever you do. And OpenAI now has partnered with a company called Scale, who I haven't heard of before. But Scale are sort of experts in fine tuning these models. So now working with Scale, again, this is more large enterprises. This is not going to be particularly cheap, but you can now fine tune GPT 3.5 Turbo, which is something which has been sort of more tunable for a while. But also now they're saying that by autumn 2023, you're going to be able to fine tune GPT-4. And the importance of this is people often sort of are concerned about is that when you use these models and you fine tune them, you're almost creating know-how and IP, aren't you, Alok, in terms of how that model responds to the data you want to share with it. But that does not get shared in the general OpenAI, Chat GPT or the OpenAI models. It's kept separate away from that data. So if you're regulated, issues about customer data and in Europe GDPR, this solves that issue.
No, 100%. Like, so if you think about it, like, within a company, you've got your culture, you've got your values, you've got your mission, you've got the way you answer things, you've got the way you do things. All of that kind of like intangible communication, it's called like operating system, that you kind of like embed into your team. That's how they answer and use tone in different ways. But now you can obviously like fine tune your AI to kind of like do the same sort of thing. So you can have like, that customized, that personalized, and that company specific tone of answering all the different details. And so you've got your own tuned version of that. I mean, Scale AI, they've been used for years for basically providing lots of labeled data, for like autonomous cars or different things like this.
Oh, well, these are guys that provide you use for computer vision and all these sort
Yes,
of.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah, yes, exactly. So the thing is, like here, by everybody having a more tuned corporate AI, it mirrors what we talked about with the personal AI, right? Where it knows about your feelings, your objectives, your habits over the last week. So I think what I'm so impressed by is like the huge companies are providing this level of customization. I mean, like so accessibly and at such scale. I think we can't even begin to think about the impact of this, basically, right? Because you can have like 100 companies answering in a completely different way, yet it's delivered by the same underlying system. I mean, that's insane.
And this is essentially, think of fine tuning as a competitive advantage. So if you imagine you've got layers, haven't you? You've got the large language model, which is sitting below it, the engine essentially. And now what you're doing, it's funny that they call it GPT, they call it GPT 3.5 Turbo. What you're then doing essentially is affixing a turbo on top of it. So you're using that enormously powerful engine, but you're then fine tuning and adding value and creating competitive advantage because that is going to interact with your business data and your customers and your stakeholders in a far more efficient and effective way than the generic model would.
Exactly. So you can have, and this is all part of like tuning your AI, customizing your AI to like be in line with your team and the way you want to do things. It's incredibly powerful, but it sets the foundations for literally all companies to be able to use AI for a significant part of their workflows, and even dealing with customers and stakeholders directly.
Well, let's move on to implement AI. We've got a lot going on. We're going to give a shout out to our events again. So we've got an event in Manchester on the 18th of October. We're doing that with the Business Growth Hub and Tech North Associates. So it's about 120 places. If you look on our social media, we'll post it again during the course of the week. You can then, it's free. So it's going to be us talking about how to understand AI, introduction to AI, how to implement it in your business. And then we're also doing another event on the 19th of October, which is more for large enterprises. If you're interested in that, probably contact us or DM us directly. It's slightly different structure. It's a much smaller audience. So we're doing that with SCC, which is one of our partners in the north that we've been talking to. So that's going to be really exciting. And we're going to do more events, aren't we? We're going to try and do kind of an event a month, sort of face to face. But also, I think we're going to try and start scaling it up by doing webinars.
Exactly. So we've got 13th of September. I'm doing an event in London, and so if you're interested in attending that one, it's an association with Founders Club. So you can check our socials or get in touch again for the details of that one.
And you're in Dublin on the 29th, aren't you?
Exactly. So I'm in Dublin on the 29th of September, and potentially might be doing something in Lisbon the 21st. But yeah, so we're getting around. We want to share the message as much as possible.
And then we mentioned in the last week the Implement AI competition. So we're still working on that. So we're going to leave that for now. But we are developing a competition where you can win an AI consultation with us, worth somewhere between £5,000 and £7,500 for your business. Also, if you haven't read them yet, please go and read our white papers. There's one on the AI assisted organization. It's kind of our framework, our approach. There's one on why you need a chief AI officer, and ideally a fractional one, because why pay for a full one right now. And we're also looking at writing some slightly more technical white papers about how this works, how you deploy it, and to provide comfort to a lot of organizations about the security of their data. And I think the next agent, we're working with Elite Business. If you haven't been to Elite Business yet, go on to Elite Business /technology, one of our partners. And we've been writing a few articles on there. We've got 2 now, I think. I'm probably going to write another one probably this week on what we've talked about earlier in the pod about employees, human resource, and AI resource as well.
No, sounds good. Like busy few months ahead, and it's coming to the end of summer, and it's a great time to kind of get started on the last quarters of the year.
So get back into a bit of news. So we talk about this every week almost, but I think it's worth just mentioning it because it just shows you the focus on AI and where the money's going. So Hugging Face, again, if you haven't heard of Hugging Face, go and have a look at Hugging Face. As I said, it's not some funky clothing brand. It's becoming quite an important repository for open source models. So they've just raised about $235 million at a 4.5 billion valuation, which is pretty amazing. I mean, they've been around for quite a long time, so the machine learning. I think now, their moment has come. So they're now celebrating the crossing of a million models, data sets, apps on the platform. So you can almost, I've done it myself, you can go on there and find a model that does something interesting, and you can test it. You can use their data set for machine learning. We mentioned the deal about 2 pods ago. I've done a deal with NVIDIA, where now once you've got your whatever you want working, you can now deploy it on supercomputer cloud infrastructure and really test it at scale. So this is really powerful stuff. And also the beauty of Hugging Face is it's open source. So these proprietary models are very, very powerful, but it's important that the access to this technology is to, as far as possible, it's democratized.
No, for sure. We use Hugging Face. It's a great resource.
And then one that you've talked about a lot moving on is medical imaging. So, and this is what you used to do, isn't it, in terms of your dental business? And the FDA has now cleared AI-powered medical imaging. A lot of this is used for spotting cancer, in radiology, isn't it? Now you've got to have a doctor in the loop, but I don't know whether they're doing that just to appease doctors, because increasingly this technology is far better than humans, isn't it?
It's like self-driving cars, but you need to sit in the driving seat, right? The car will basically be driving, but you just need to have someone legally sitting in the driver's seat, basically, right? So I think
or like Teslas, there'll be a lot of doctors just asleep in the back now while the car's
yeah,
driving itself.
exactly. So I think that's already kind of going, and AI assisted diagnosis has been there for a while, but now it's just moving more towards acceptance, because they've just seen how these systems can just outperform. And when they've grafted language models to image models, and they're showing it cancers it's not seen before, it's able to understand the image from the text it already knew, and it's just outperforming humans. humans. Like it's still going to need to have humans, but like, um, it's becoming much more accepted.
But the interesting point though, that's we've been seeing that coming for quite a while, is computer vision, isn't it? It's this multimodality, and computer vision. When you start thinking about the use cases for in your personal life and security, but especially in business, it's profound. And I think we're going to see, and Google Gemini are working on this as well. But the ability for technology to see the world and understand it and respond to it is going to be huge.
It's profound, and the ability to like you said, build a representational model of the world, know what's going on. That's how it drives robotics as well, because it can see like pass me the item on the table or prevent the item from falling over, and it can detect and understand all these things, and it'll start picking up things that we don't even notice. So I think it's just going to be like a very very interesting convergence of all these technologies happening over the next 12 months, basically.
So moving on, the big piece of news is kind of a link to the actor strikes in the US. But what's really interesting is that increasingly we do this all the time. We're creating content using artificial intelligence. A lot of it's sort of imagery, but also written content as well. Now you have to go through that and check it if you know what you're talking about, because otherwise releasing content into the wild that hasn't been checked by a human, a bit like the radiology in some cases, probably isn't a good plan. But over time, that's going to become less and less necessary. So you get this question: is that in any organization, and I know big organizations are even more sensitive to this, if you create or produce some content, whether it's written or whether it's an image, at what point can you copyright it? So there's been some case law in the US now that said that you can't copyright AI generated content. Now that was some content that was literally just generated on the fly by an AI. But if you've taken that image, that initial image, and you've tweaked it, I don't know, you edited it, you've colorized it, you've prompted, we'll come back to in painting in a minute. You've in painted it or you've zoomed out. At what point does that human input make that content copyrightable? Now, the law, I'm an ex-lawyer, the law is going to take probably a decade to catch up on this, and there's going to be a lot of case law around it. But increasingly, it seems that just having AI generated content with no human interaction, I kind of get it as a lawyer. But I do think that the more input, more human input there is in that image or that content, the more likely it is you're going to be able to protect it over time.
It's going to go that way, isn't it? Right? Like as long as you've got the commercial license for it, as long as you fine tuned it, as long as you've customized it, then it's going to be like using a computer. I mean, it's going to basically say like if I drew with hand on paper, or if I drew on a computer using paint, like it's going to go like that way basically, and then everyone's going to kind of default to using AI with these tools. So I think it's going to be very hard for regulation to kind of keep up with these things, but also like it just becomes part of your kind of competitive advantage to be able to produce more information, more content in a scalable way, and it's going to become increasingly accepted that if you're not using AI for these things, kind of why?
Yeah, it's just bonkers in terms of the cost of it, which brings me neatly on to the next items, which is often in this podcast we don't a lot of AI podcasts and news is all about you can do text to this. I mean, this week it's about text to film. Now you can just write a prompt and a film about a cowboy in Liverpool, and it will create a 15-minute film literally about a cowboy in Liverpool, and then you can add more and more detail into that prompt. So all this stuff isn't really consumed. We don't really focus on it, but some of the real powerful tools that anyone should be using in any business is sort of the creation of images and even art in some cases. And I think the best one is still probably Mid-Journey. You've got stability and clip drop, but Mid-Journey is still very, very good. The only downside is it's kind of still locked away in Discord, but they're working very hard on now producing a web-based version of Mid-Journey. So if you use Mid-Journey, this is where you kind of write a prompt. It creates fantastic images. They can be photorealistic. It can do hands pretty well now. Everyone used to have like 6 fingers and no thumb, but now you're seeing that hands and the human peripherals are becoming pretty good. But they released a month ago the ability to kind of zoom out. So you can put an image of yourself, in your garden, tightly cropped like I am now. And you can zoom out. It will actually in Paint create the world around you on the fly. What they've now done is launch this week in painting. So you can have an image of me here, and I might have, I don't know, sat next to my dog or something. You can then mask out your dog sat next to you, and then put in zebra, and it will replace your dog with a zebra. That's an extreme example. But you can imagine if you've got a corporate image you want to use and there's something in it that's not quite right, you can go into Photoshop. And this is like where Photoshop's kind of going with Firefly, is you can now change images with prompts in any part of an image and almost any elements in an image. You can now actually even relight images. So Midjourney is super powerful. If you don't know how to use it, it's something you should learn, especially when it hits the web. And then on that, just carrying on from that, I mentioned text to video. So there's one called In Video AI. Go and have a look at that and create your 15-minute video. But I think a lot more importantly, because I think we've all used these, is often in any business, you want to create an animation. It's cheaper than film. You want to do it, maybe a how-to video or an introduction to your business is the best way of doing it. Who we are, what we do, or how you use our product. And often you want to use animation. But in my experience, animations are like 500 to £1,000 a minute. Whereas now you've got text or prompt to animation. I think this is going to be really, really powerful.
I mean, it's just insane, like all the tools that are happening. But like I think like Midjourney is so powerful. Before people were talking about like, the hands and like how they weren't right, but then that got fixed very quickly. And now with the animation and with the film being able to do things, I mean, Photoshop or Adobe actually like, internally within the company, they've had some kind of like almost like existential questions because they existed before to like empower designers and help those professionals be more creative. And the new tools that they've created almost defeat the need for those like, people, in those roles and those tasks. So
I mean, do you remember we were doing some artwork for Implement AI? There's an image I quite liked. It had like a light bulb in it, which I thought was a bit cheesy. And I said, "Can you take the light bulb out?" And the designer looked at it and wrote to us an email and said, "Yeah, I can do, but it's going to be about 4 hours work. It's quite a detailed image." And I thought, "No, I don't think so." So I went into Adobe Photoshop, used Firefly, and just prompted, "Take out the light bulb," which it did. It was like there's some circular sort
yeah,
of elements in the image around where the light bulb was. I said, "Right, take those out now." And you would not have known that light bulb was there,
no,
would you? It took me about 6 minutes.
that's the thing. That's the thing now. Like it's literally a question of imagination and direction because the AI has the power to do these things. If you're not using it with your content creation, your images, your design, your presentations, you need to because like the power is so good. I mean, obviously, working with good designers and you use good AI, you can get the best out of everyone. You can do things much more powerfully, much quicker. But
But in most cases, you can just say to a designer, "Look, I want to do this," and rather than just having a blank sheet of paper, it's look kind of like this is what I'm thinking, and they can then take it on. But it just gets you a long way down the road in terms of being able to communicate with a creative mind. Because if you're not creative, that can be hard to do.
But this is the same exact the same thing, like you said, like sitting next to like sitting with these AIs like Midjourney or different things. It's almost like sitting next to a designer and saying, "I would like an image of this." Like imagine you sat next to like an amazing artist saying, "I want an image of like this, which is like this, so it can fit within this area in this way," and they draw it for you. Now the AI does that. They've got the same thing with encoding. It's like I want a program which does this. It looks like this. It has a screen like this, and it connects like this, and then the AI will do it. So now you've almost got these not just super clever, talented analysts next to you. They're also like programmers, designers, filmmakers, animators, like translators. It's you name it, they can do it.
And 2 weeks ago on the pod, we showed a clip drop, the sort of stable doodle, where you can literally draw like a stick man on in an orchard or something with stick trees. It will actually then create a photorealistic image
Yeah.
of a guy standing in an orchard. So it helps you then say to a designer, "I don't want that, but I want something like that." You get the idea. So that's super powerful. If you want to try text to animation, go and try Steve.ai. And again, this is early days. AI, we always say this is the worst it's ever going to be, but it's actually pretty good already. So imagine this in a couple of years, you are going to be able to create very good. I mean, you were saying Alok as well now. You can create cartoons on the fly,
Yeah.
The Simpsons on the fly.
South Park
Imagine
did it.
now, is it South Park? Sorry, so South Park on the fly. So very soon you're going to be able to create fantastically detailed and accurate and in different sort of styles how to animated videos, which I think is a game changer
Uh,
because that takes out another whole load of cost.
I mean, I'm just waiting for like Netflix to start unleashing its AI content, basically, right? Like, can you imagine, like okay, you liked Reacher, or you liked this, you liked that. Here is 20 more Reacher episodes done in this way, or here's the new Game of Thrones in this way. Like, it's just insane.
And then moving on, so AI of the week. Now we've got kind of two. One's kind of an AI, it's like within an AI. One is we mentioned this over the last couple of weeks. It was frustrating that hadn't arrived. But OpenAI now, this is in Chat GPT-4 or Chat GPT Plus if you subscribe to it, which usually using kind of defaults now to GPT-4. But this is custom instruction. So what this means is, and this is a game changer, is that when you're now, when you're prompting, going into Chat GPT, as lots of people do, saying, "Please write me something about X," right? You're not going to get the best out of it. It needs to know, it needs context. Who are you? Why are you writing? How do you want it written? Who are you writing it for? How long should it be? What's your tone of voice? And you can go on and on and on and on. Well, you had to start that process almost every time you logged into ChatGPT. Whereas now you can provide background context. So if you subscribe to ChatGPT Plus, go in. It probably will prompt you when you open it now to fill out your custom instructions. So one is about the context about who you are and what you do and why you do it. And there's another box which is how do you want ChatGPT to respond to you. So, for example, I prefer it to call me Piers, so it calls me Piers. But I don't want it to sort of apologize when it does things wrong because it's using up tokens. Just keep it short. And often when you ask it to do something, it just starts generating when you're still providing context. So I'm kind of saying, don't start writing or doing anything until I specifically, expressly ask you to. So you can set up those two boxes, but it completely changes the way you use ChatGPT.
It's amazing. I haven't set mine up yet, but I'm going to be doing that literally this week.
And then more interesting in terms of an AI, if you've seen our social media again, probably on LinkedIn or my Instagram, are the headshots. So I've been trying a couple of these over several months, and they've got better. Some of them, just in case you go out there, are scams. So it looks great. It said, "Oh, these headshots." You pay, and that's it. That's the end. You can't get hold of them. So there are a lot of AI scams out there promising you amazing things, but just after your credit card. But this one we used was called, Alo, you found it was Aragon.ai.
Yeah.
So I think I provided about, I think it's 12 to 14 headshots for it to sort of train itself on. And after about 2 hours later, it produced, I think it was about 40 headshots. Now to the 40, I'd say 30 were good. I'd say 15 were good, apart from my eyes were just a bit, they were wrong. They were either pointing in the wrong direction or it didn't look human. There's something wrong with them. Now you could take those, copy that, put it into Midjourney,
exactly,
in paint it, and replace your eyes, so you can do that. But just in terms of, I was trying to test on the immediate output, what's usable, and I would say about 10 of them were good. I think 5, 6 of them, I put this on social media. It was interesting seeing people saying which one of these AI. They were all AI, but even I looking at it, and I've got a scar on my head as well. Sometimes it looked like I've just been hit with a samurai sword in some of the cases, but in most cases, even that's perfect. So what this means, though, is again in terms of business, is that that cost of going out and getting a load of headshots for your team, for the website, or someone's left or someone's joined and changing it and getting it to look the same as the rest of them is kind of gone. You can now create headshots, you can stylize them for your whole team or for you personally, for your own personal brand using this technology. And I was gobsmacked, actually.
No, it's very powerful. And like I say, at the moment, the eyes thing is a bit like the hands was before, right? Like on Midjourney, but even that the solutions for it use specific imagery. And within a few months, this is going to be indistinguishable.
So we're going to have a play of Aragon.ai, and there's lots of others, but that's the one I use for that particular test. So that's it. We're going to, if you haven't signed up for the AI Insider newsletter yet, please do go to implementai.io. Sign up for our newsletter. Again, you haven't read the white papers. The AI assisted organization white paper kind of explains, what we do, why we're doing it, and how we do it. And then please follow us. Please, if you want to see this on YouTube or watch it rather than just listen to it, this will be out on YouTube probably a day after we launch the audio version of the pod. And if you haven't yet, please do. It really matters to us. Please follow us on YouTube. Followers help. And please rate the pod on whatever platform you use. It makes a massive difference to us. And that's it for this week. This is the AI Assisted Organization podcast, Implement AI, with Piers Lee and Alex Shuckler. We'll see you again next week.
See you next week, Piers.